Good morning. I'm Linda, Pinky Mouse Sisters in the kitchen, and I'm cooking by myself today. Mary's at home. She's feeling much better, but we're just taking precaution because of her cold, and Mike and I are fine. Several people asked yesterday. We're not sick. I was ready to walk out the door when she called me yesterday, and we just decided on the spur of a moment at her suggestion that that we cook separate because of her having this bad cold. So thank y'all for joining us, and I will give it just a second here. I'm making caramel crackers today. Several people have asked me to do this, and we have made them before, but we are going to make them again today. So for our members, the recipe is on our website, we are, if you have our cookbook, this is in our cookbook. It's in the back under this and that. What I'm making today is more than the recipe that's in the cookbook. So if you are following along in the cookbook and you see different amounts, this is basically a double recipe. So I've got my oven heated to 250. And you don't have to grease or butter your, not grease, but butter your baking pans because it's got a lot of butter in it. But I just really lightly buttered these, and I just took the butter wrapper and just lightly buttered them. We are sponsored by Imperial Sugar. This is extra fine sugar, and that's what I'm using today. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm using the little mini club crackers. Used to, for years, you could get the little, there was a little, kind of a little squatty plastic container that had the little mini round crackers, Nabisco, and I got those at either Big Lots or the drugstores like CVS, and Nabisco has the little small square crackers, and since for months I haven't been able to find them. So what I'm using today, and I've used the club ones before, I'm using these. I'm also going to use some oyster crackers, soup crackers, just to give it more dimension. Now I will tell you that these are delicate. They will tear easy. So when you're stirring them, be careful because they will come apart. But I did want to use some of them. I'm not going to use a lot, but I'm going to use some of them. And I'm just going to mix this in the bowl here, give it a quick stir, pour it in the pan, and then we're going to move over to the stove and make our syrup. So that is one package of those. I've got a little over a cup of dry roasted peanuts. I'm generous with my nuts. The recipe calls for a cup. I use a little more. And if you want to use pecans or another nut, you can. I've used pecans before. The dry roasted are a little hardier. These peanuts are hardier. They're naturally a hardier nut than pecans are. So you need to be careful if you use pecans. You might not even want to put them in until you stir them twice. And that way they're only in the oven for 30 minutes. Because you have to cook this in a 250 oven. You cook it for 15 minutes at a time, and you take it out and you stir it. So these are going to be in there for an hour. So I'm going to pour my nuts in, and then I'm probably going to pour about a half a bag of the oyster crackers in. And this is, it's a small bag. It's 9 ounces. And then I'm going to put my other bag of the little mini clubs. And I'm just going to stir this up with my tongs. And I probably could have piled this up on one baking sheet, but I want to have enough room to stir this when I take it out of the oven. So I decided that I would go with two pans. And I don't know if I need to move this over so y'all can see this better. Maybe that'll help. Okay. I'm just going to guesstimate this and put about half of it. You want to have this done before you start before you start your syrup mixture, because you can't do this after you get your syrup mixture ready to pour onto these. That might not be completely even, but it's close enough. Now I'm going to tell y'all something about this snack. When y'all start making these, y'all definitely may wind up making 2 batches, because this is something like popcorn. When you start eating this, it is very hard to quit. It is just a great, great snack. I lightly buttered my bench scraper and a spoon, and I'm going to use this to stir as I take it out of the oven, and I'm going to use that to stir when I pour the syrup over it. So we're going to move over here to the stove, and I'm working with a new tripod here, and I am really hoping that this is going to help y'all see better. I'm going to turn my stove light on. I always forget, but I'm not going to turn that on. I'm going to turn that on. So I've got the burner on. I'm using this 4-quart boiler. You don't have to use one this big, but I'm specifically using this one because it's got a pour spout on it. So I'm going to just get that heated just briefly. So when I put my butter in there, it's going to melt really quick. So we'll give it just a second. These boilers aren't titanium. This is the new Brilliance cookware, and they heat up faster than the titanium, so it's not going to take this long to heat. And I'm going to use 2 sticks of, and I'm not going to worry about me being in the picture. I'm going to try my best to get it to where y'all can see what I'm doing. I'm using 2 sticks of unsalted butter, and I'm going to put that in first because I want it to start melting. And you can see, because I heated the boiler, it's starting to melt immediately. And I've got this on medium-high on my stove. And you can see I got the oven on 250. I fixed my racks to where you probably can't see them. Let's see if my thing is going to work now. I fixed my racks to where they're not on the bottom and they're not on the top. So you don't want it on the bottom. Okay, my butter's melting real quickly. I'm going to give that just another second. I don't use a candy thermometer with this. After it starts cooking and boiling, I'm going to cook it for 5 minutes. Make sure I'm telling y'all right. Bring it up to a boil and cook it for 5 minutes. Okay, so it's almost melted. Just another second or two. Well, not a second, but another minute or so, it should be all melted. This butter was soft, so that helped it melt faster too. So you might want to set your butter out. Now this is something you can make ahead of time. If you're making this for Christmas, you can make ahead of time, get you some good Ziploc storage bags, or if you have Tupperware or a good container that's airtight, you can keep it in this, and this will keep fresh for several weeks, as long as it's in an airtight container. Okay, so we got just a little bit that's not melted. I'm going to pour 2 cups of Imperial granulated extra fine sugar. Give this a quick stir. I spilled a little bit of my vanilla on that 1 cup, so it's got had a little bit of dark spot on there, but that's what that was the vanilla. And I'm pretty sure that Mary's on the other end. I hadn't had a chance to look at the comments, but I'm sure that she is. So thank you, Mary, for watching. I'm using a cup of light corn syrup. You can use the Karo brand or you can use the store brand. This happens to be Kroger's. 1 cup. And I could have buttered this because we're using butter in this recipe, but I didn't. I didn't even think about it. But if you want to use it, make it easier to come out of your cup, just butter it. Lightly butter it. Okay, I think I got pretty much all of that out of there. Now you can't use metal utensils with this new cookware, the Brilliance, so I'm using a silicone spoon to stir this with. Okay, so we're going to start this cooking. I'm hoping that y'all can see. I'm hoping that you can. So all that's in here is butter, sugar, and syrup. And I'm going to just keep stirring that. You can tell it's got a lot of butter in it. I'm going to keep stirring that. Gotta let that start cooking until it comes to a boil. Anytime you're dissolving sugar, you want to make sure that you don't start it on high, because it'll start boiling before the sugar gets dissolved. Now the good thing about this extra fine imperial sugar is it dissolves very quickly. In fact, you can tell that it's already dissolved. So it's going to start boiling pretty quickly. I don't want to turn it up real high. And I've got my vanilla and my baking soda over here waiting after I boil it for 5 minutes. Then I'm going to put that in there and take it over there and pour it in the pans. So, goodness, we have had unseasonably warm weather, and I don't like this weather like this. We have a window unit in the utility room, and I know some people, just absolutely don't like window units, but we have it in there to, when I was baking for the public, my kitchen would get so hot, even with air and fans going, that we put this window unit in there, and it really helps cool off the kitchen. And of course the hot water heater and the washer and dryer and 2 freezers and a refrigerator is in there. So even with just the motors running, it generates heat. So that window unit helps keep things cool. And Mike said this morning, he said, I don't ever remember us leaving that window unit in, because he takes it out in the winter. I don't ever remember leaving it in that long. And I said, don't you dare take that window unit out. I have to have that, because it really helps when you have your oven on. It helps keep things cooler. So, and it also, they don't use much electricity, not like a 220 air conditioner. And our air conditioner is on right now, I can tell you that. See how smooth that just comes right off of your spoon there? That's all that butter. So this should start boiling pretty quickly. And I don't know, I'm thinking maybe that I just move these pans over here to keep from having to move the camera again. So when I get ready to pour the syrup over them, then I'll be right here at it, and I won't have to take it over there and do that. Maybe I won't make too big of a mess here. You can see the you've got some of the little round crackers, and then you've got these here. And if you have a place in your area that you can get the little mini snack crackers, they look like a Ritz cracker, but they're really small. They're a little bit bigger than, well, they're probably twice as big as this. They're probably about the size of a nickel, probably. If you can get those, some of them, just a word to the wise, some of them are flavored. You don't want ranch, you want original. If you can get those in your area, make sure you get the original, because I don't think this syrup would be good over ranch. I just don't, I think that would be a bad combination. Okay. That looks really, really good. It's so smooth. Another thing too, when you're cooking syrup like this, and you could cook this in a smaller pan in a 2-quart, but once you put soda in something like for the peanut brittle or anything like this mixture that you're using soda in, it's going to bubble up, and you don't want it to boil over on your pan. So this is going to help me having this 4-quart boiler for it not to boil over when I add the soda and stir it. I don't want my burner to get too hot, but I want to get this boiling because it's got to boil for 5 minutes. So tomorrow I'm going to be on, and I'm going to make something that is something that's a little different, that I think that you might like for breakfast for New Year. I mean, you could do it New Year's too, absolutely, but for Christmas Eve morning or for Christmas morning, if you want something that's different, or maybe you and your husband or your wife just struggle to find something different for breakfast. It seems like, bacon and eggs, ham and eggs, sausage and eggs. Mike is real careful about sausage and bacon. He doesn't eat a whole lot of it, and I love both of it. But you want something different. You just get tired of eating the same thing all the time. A lot of times I'll fix open-faced sandwiches. I love grilled bread. So I will fix grilled bread and fix an open-faced breakfast sandwich with egg and scrambled egg. I don't eat fried eggs, but scrambled egg and a little bit of cheese on it and some kind of meat on that too. And I like that. I love the fact that, you can mix it up and do something different. I'm trying to see if I can read these comments, but I've got to turn my neck. So maybe I need to pull this up so I can see it. And see if anybody has said, ask anything that maybe I could answer. Or maybe Mary or Carla's answering them. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that little Linda is still taking care of some business today. I'm not totally positive. I didn't talk to her this morning, but I think she probably is. I see that comment there about the stars. I don't know what Facebook does, but please don't ever feel obligated. We appreciate the stars, but please don't ever feel obligated to give stars. Sometimes that's kind of embarrassing. Somebody said the other day they thought they had to give stars to watch. We do not charge to watch our videos. We never have charged to watch our videos. So please don't think we're initiating that, because we're not. Or asking for it. Okay, we're getting really close to start boiling here. And so we like oatmeal. I'll fix it sometimes just plain oatmeal. And then sometimes I will dice the apple and cook it with cinnamon. And I usually put like a teaspoon or tablespoon of sugar in it. Mike doesn't like much sugar in it. And then we top the oatmeal with that. But what I'm fixing tomorrow is going to be something different, something that I've never done. And so I'm really excited to see how that's going to turn out. And I plan to fix some grilled bread to go with it, just for that crunch. And I don't know, maybe some smoked sausage or bacon or something. I'm not sure what I'll fix with it. But I think I do see Mary on there. Hey, Mary. So I think after a few more days, we're going to have a little bit cooler weather. This recipe is in our cookbook. It's in the back under this and that. It's caramel crackers. But keep in mind, the recipe that's in there is a half recipe. I'm doubling this. So if you see it and you say that's not how she did it, well, then you'll know why. A lot of times Mary and I will double something. Can y'all see that's starting to boil? Once it starts doing, okay, so I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. And as you cook this in the oven, when you first put it on here, it's going to be light. And with each cooking, after you stir it, it's going to be darker. So by the time you cook this 4 times and stir it 4 times, it's going to be a real deep caramel color. Absolutely, we don't push to send them. I mean, please don't ever think that we're doing that, because we're not. Okay, you see that's just really good light syrup that's boiling. And not using a candy thermometer. I'm just cooking this for 5 minutes. Set the timer on 5 minutes. So I haven't showed that my screen has frozen up any. A lot of times when that happens, it's on the other end. When it stops, I can see it on my end. So hopefully, if you go back and watch the replay, it won't do that. Got my stuff boiling really nice here. Got a little bit over 3 minutes left. And you don't have to stir it, but I'm stirring it. Now this pot here is non-stick, but if you're using a boiler that is not non-stick, you might want to stir it. So to recap, I've used 2 of the boxes of Mini Club crackers and then about a half a package of the little oyster crackers and a generous cup of dry roasted peanuts. And then this is my syrup mixture here. Now, I will tell you that if you've never made these and you make them, this is going to be something you're going to want to make every year. They are that good. Mary and I both love them, and you can have big 2 or 3 or 4 big bags of them, and every time you go by there, you want to grab your handful. And when I have stuff fixed that I'm going to take somewhere, even in the house, I don't eat out of the package that it's in. I get me one of the little cheap bags down there, and I'll put a few in it, so my hands are only touching what I'm eating. And I know that might sound a little crazy to some people, but I just, I like to, what I'm serving or giving to somebody else, I don't want it to be picked over. I want it to be fresh out of the pot or oven, and so it's just my preference. That's just what I like to do. Okay, and for all of the people that, if there's people on here, well, I'm not even going to mention that. Hopefully there's not anybody on here asking to be their friend, but if they are, please ignore that until we can get that taken care of. See how pretty that looks? Now, if this was in a smaller boiler, this would be almost to the top right now. And then time you put the soda in there, it very well might boil over. So what's cooking in the pot is extra fine granulated sugar, butter, and light Karo syrup or light corn syrup, whichever you use. This is what I'm using today. It's not Karo brand, it's store brand. But you can use Karo. Some of the store brands, I've had people text me and ask me about this because I've used syrup several times in the last week or so cooking things. If you turn the jar upside down and it's just like liquid, don't buy that. Get something that's a little thicker. You don't want your syrup to be as thin as water. It should be syrup and not something that's really, really thick. I mean, really thin, not thick, thin. The big saltines, if you use those, I guess if worse come to worse, you could use them, but then you're going to have to break them, and it's a lot harder to break after the sets. So I've never used the big saltines, but if that's all you have and you can break them into smaller pieces before you put them on your tray, then by all means use it, because we all know that you can't get everything that you used to could get a couple of years ago. Sometimes the store shelves are empty of what you want to get, and especially around the holidays. So I am going to stir this one more time here. And we are down to my 5 minutes. I'm going to turn the burner off. Turn my timer off. And I may need to set this over here and turn this. Well, let me go ahead and get my... I'm going to put the vanilla in first. It's 2 teaspoons. And that does that. I'll have to clean my stove off. That vanilla bubbles up. And now I'm going to put the soda in. And this is also 2 teaspoons. I totally made a mess on that stove. So you see how it's bubbling up? You want to make sure all that soda is stirred up real good. And I'm going to pour about half of it in one pan and about half of it in the other. And I'm guesstimating, so y'all aren't able to see me. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to just stir everything around, get the crackers and the peanuts coated. I'm sorry I had to move that camera real quick. When you're pouring something up, it's just a little bit of a challenge to make sure you get that. Now, this is not all mixed in together, but I'm going to work on that in a minute. I'm going to move over here to this pan because I want to get this kind of stirred up a little bit. Now, some syrups or some recipes, you might see something like this that has less syrup in it. I like to make sure that I've got enough syrup to get everything coated. And so when I did this recipe, I kind of made sure that I had enough ingredients to coat everything, and I don't have every piece of cracker coated right this second, but after I cook these for 15 minutes and I take them out and stir them, I'll stir and make sure that the rest of this is in there because I want to get these in the oven. What I'm planning on doing is cooking them 2 times and then finish cooking them off air, and then once they're cooked, and I will come back on and they're cooled. I'll come back on and show y'all the finished product. Okay, so I'm going to open my oven. It's on 250. And I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes. Whoops. Dropped a little piece of stuff down here, and I've got a oven liner in my oven, which would have been good. It would have caught it, but I didn't want that to start smelling. Y'all ever drop something in your oven and it just stinks to high heaven? I do not like that at all. And I don't like that I got all this stuff on my stove here. I'll probably have to take this out and clean it later to make sure I get it all off. Okay, put this in the sink, and I know y'all don't like to watch me do this, but for some reason I just do not like. Let's set my timer. I don't like stuff messed up. So I'm coming back over here. Move some of this out of the way. I never did even put my apron on. That is so funny. I had my apron laid out and I didn't even put it on. For some reason, I just never put it on. I guess I forgot. So, when we were kids, little kids, we'd go to Grandma Hooper's, which was Molly's mother and daddy, Grandma and Grandpa Hooper's. They lived in Shelby County, which, if any of you know the logistics in East Texas, we're from Nacogdoches County. Nacogdoches is the seat of Nacogdoches County. And there's several little towns around it. Sharina is where our parents grew up at, and that's south of Nacogdoches. And then east of Nacogdoches, there's a little town called Center. Well, before you get to Center, you get to Martinsville, which is another little, just a little tiny community, and then Aiken, which is even smaller than Martinsville. And Aiken is where Grandma and Grandpa Hooper lived, right on Highway 7. And they had a huge house. As far as I know, it was never painted. It was a wood frame house. It had a porch all the way across the front. They had a big well in the front yard, and they also had a storm house in the front yard. And in the backyard, they had when I was real little, of course, it eventually, I don't know if it decayed or a storm blew it away or whatever, a fire or whatever, but eventually that was gone. But they had their own orchard, so they grew all kinds of fruit, and they made these fabulous pies at Christmas. But you'd go to Grandma's, and that's what we called it, was Grandma Hooper, and she had this gumdrop tree. And we were not underprivileged kids. We had all we needed. Mom and Daddy were not frivolous. They were very thrifty and very frugal, but we had 3 meals a day. We had a good house that we lived in. Daddy always had a good car, and so we were not underprivileged by no means. But we didn't get candy like kids do today. I saw something on Facebook the other day that said, what do we get our kids? They already have everything. And it was funny, and it wasn't funny, because you used to, when a child got something at Christmas, it meant something to them. Now, I'm not a parent, and I'm not knocking parents. I'm not knocking what they do for their kids. It's just, to me, it's just, it's got a little out of hand. We bought all of our Christmas presents for all the kids at the dollar store. And we got some fairly good presents. I think we did. But, I think that because kids do have so much, they don't, and everybody, we're all born in a different generation, and I seem like I'm rambling, but back to what I was talking about when we were kids, the stockings with orange and an apple and some nuts and the little, I don't even know what they're called, cream drops with dark chocolate on them, had a cream center filling. That was my daddy. He loved that candy. And usually if I see them around Christmas, I'll buy some because it reminds me so much of him. But when we would go to Grandma and Grandpa Hooper's, they had this gumdrop tree. So we always knew that we was going to get a gumdrop. And and Mike put these on here, and he put some extra ones in the bottom. So as the kids would take one off, and we wasn't allowed to just sit there and pull gumdrops off of the gumdrop tree. We got a gumdrop. But it was just something, the anticipation about knowing that we were going to get that gumdrop. And it was just so fun to see this tree filled with this candy. And they had different colors on theirs. They had oranges and yellows and different colors. And the little container that I bought only had red and green on it. But Mike put them all green except the 2 on the top. And I said, well, why didn't you put some red ones on there? And he said, well, I just thought it would be pretty green. So I thought that was cute. Anyway, this is a plastic one. I'm sure the one that they had back when I was a child was not plastic. It might even have been something that Grandpa Hooper made. I don't know, because, they were thrifty, and they whittled. Men always had a knife, and they were always whittling something. But I ordered this one off of Amazon, and I've actually had more than this one. But it either broke or something happened to it, and I wanted a gumdrop tree, so I ordered one. They're inexpensive. And somebody mentioned yesterday when I was on my other page was that a gumdrop tree in the back. So I thought I would just talk about the gumdrop tree this morning. And I think it's something that even today would fascinate little kids. I think it would fascinate them to know that they could pull a gumdrop off of the tree. And then, of course, once you pull one off, the adults would go back and fill the tree back up so it would stay pretty. But when I open a candy bar, like a chocolate, you know, if you buy the little fun size, the little small candy bars, it reminds me so much of Christmas, because we didn't have a candy bowl. We didn't keep candy in the house. It was not something, we didn't keep candy or fruit in the house. We had fruit and around Christmas time, we had apples and oranges, and they bought big bags of nuts, and we had nuts, which it was something that we knew at Christmas time that we were going to have that. So it was like a treat, and almost probably anybody's house in East Texas that grew up when I did, around this time of year, you're going to see a bowl of nuts with one of them little hand crackers that you crack nuts with in a bowl, and men will come by and they'll see the nuts, and they just will pick up a couple and crack them. Sometimes they crack them with their hands, just use 2 nuts to crack, you know, like 2 walnuts to crack them open. You hold them in your hand just right, you can push them together and it'll crack them open. And I probably couldn't do that for nothing now, because I don't have that much strength in my hands. But it reminds me, when I see mixed nuts and nuts in the store, it reminds me of that bowl that with that old-timey little nutcracker that you can crack your nuts in. And of course, picking up pecans, and I haven't really seen that many pecans for sale this year. You usually see it on Marketplace and a lot of different places. So I don't know if the pecans didn't make well this year or not, but I've got a few, and I'm being very frugal with the ones I've got, because I've got certain things that I make that you need pecans for. So I'm being very, very thrifty with the ones I've got. I started to put pecans in this today, and I said, no, I'll save my pecans. I'll use the peanuts and put the peanuts in there. So, let's see. I believe that Mary announced the apron winner yesterday. I'm going to put this back over here on the table. Get that out of the way. We have got a box from our friend Marla that we have not opened, because it's at my house, and I didn't want to open it until I was with Mary. So Marla, I've been tempted to peek, but I'm not going to open that box until I'm with my sister. So thank you for being patient that we haven't opened it yet. But and I know whatever's in it that we'll both love it. So yesterday, Mary and I both do this. We decide we're going to do something on the spur of a moment, and you know, once we get something in our head, it's really hard to get out of our head that we're not going to do it. So for a long time, and when I say a long time, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I have wanted to have a microphone, a singing microphone, not a podcast or a talking microphone or a gaming microphone. I wanted a singing microphone, and there is a difference. And I wanted a stand to go by my piano. Well, if you have a microphone, you have to have a speaker or an amplifier. I had one speaker here. I tried it. It didn't work. So to keep from going around the world, well, I've still got a few more minutes before I do the first stirring. But I went to Walmart, I don't know, about a week ago, and I bought a mic, and it was cordless. Do not like cordless mics. I'm sure there are some that are a lot better than the one that I bought, but I didn't like it. And but I was willing to give it a chance, and I bought a speaker at Walmart, and it was marked down, so I was pretty sure that somebody had brought it back. And I was okay with that too, because sometimes you buy something, you just don't want it, so you take it back to the store. So I was okay with that. Got it home. It was very heavy. Mike just had a fit. He said, how did you even get this in the car? And he said, Linda, you can't pick this up. It's too heavy. Well, he opened it and got it out of the box, and I'd had it here for a few days, and I told him, I said, don't break the box down, because Mike will, as soon as we get a box, he wants to get rid of it. And to keep from having so much garbage, he breaks it down and folds it and wraps it with duct tape to minimize the space that it takes up in the garbage. So I set it in the utility room, and I said, don't break it down, because I may take this back. I'm not sure that I'm going to keep it. So while he was gone to mail stuff yesterday, I got it out and tried it, and I didn't like it. So, and it didn't take me long to know it was not what I wanted, and neither was the mic. So, when he got back, I said, can you please box this up for me? I'm going to return it. And so he did, put it in the car for me, and told me when I got to Walmart to make sure I did this and did that, so I'm not totally just putting, lifting it. Well, it turned out that this really nice man lifted it for me, which was very nice because it was heavy. So I took that back, but before I did, I called the music store, and to my knowledge, we only have one in town in Longview. Now, there may be some other smaller music stores, but this music store has been in Longview for as long as I can remember. It's my music store. It's on Judson, and it's a big store. They have a lot of merchandise in there. And in fact, I would say probably a year ago, I went in there to price these systems. Because my thinking is, instead of buying piecemeal stuff, you get a system from the same place, so you know it all fits and works together. You don't have to get home and not have this part or not have this part and then have to wind up and go back. We live 32 miles from Longview. So I called and asked him, told him what I wanted, and I asked him, did he have something like that? And he said, yes, he did. I told him I did not want to spend a fortune, but I didn't want the cheapest he had either. I didn't want to just get something to say I had something. So, and I asked him, did he have any discounts and or any sales? So he did give me a little bit of price break. So I told him, well, I'll come Friday. And then the more I got to thinking about it, I said, no, I'm not. I'm just going to go today. So I went, returned the stuff, and then went to the music store, and I got what I needed, and got up to the checkout, and I picked a different stand because I didn't like the one that he had put back for me. I knew what I wanted. I used to have my own microphone, my own system that was personally mine, but after Mike and I got married and we moved from Jackson, I left it at the church because that's where I used it, and I just didn't feel right taking it, even though it was mine. It was a gift to me, and it was mine, but I left it. So I knew what I wanted. So, it's kind of funny because, and this guy was super nice. They're very nice people in there, very laid back. But I'm thinking he probably thought when I come in, what in the world is an old woman like you wanting to buy a PA system? Okay, my buzzer's going off, so hold that thought and let me get my stuff out of the oven and stir it the first time. And I'm going to take one out first. Oops, I dropped my pot holder. And I'll stir it. Now you can see that it's not, hasn't started to turn dark yet. Stir this one, and then but trust me, the longer you cook it, it will start to turn. Well, I'll just leave that one because I don't want to go wash my hands, and I don't want to pick it up without washing my hands. Yeah, I dropped peanut. So be careful when you're stirring it. Don't do like I did, just knock two things out. You want to just kind of spread it out as evenly as you can after you stir it. And the first time or two, it really doesn't matter a whole lot. But then after it's cooked that third time, it's going to start turning. And you'll see it after I cook it again. Now, you know, some of you might say, well, why can't you speed the process up and turn it on 275 or 300? You don't want to do that. You want to leave it on 250, just like I started, because you don't want to overcook this. And if you leave it on too long or too high, it's going to burn. You don't want that. You can tell this one was on the bottom, and I think it's actually cooking a little bit more than that one on the top or the next shelf. Okay. All right, let's put it back in here and set the timer again. And I always say this, anything you do is going to take time, and not to start doing something unless you've got the time to do it. And that's when people mess up stuff. When they've got too many irons in the fire and they're trying to do too many things and trying to rush it. So, so I got up to the counter, and I'd already switched stands because I knew I didn't want a tripod. I knew I want the heavy base so it wouldn't move, and I didn't want a tripod anyway because I didn't want it under my feet under the piano because I couldn't get to my foot pedals. So I picked out the one I wanted, and then I'm fixing to check out, and I'm like, okay, does the mic have a cable or a cord? We used to call them cords. They call them cables now. And he said, no, it doesn't. And I said, well, I need a cable. And so we went over and picked out a cable. And first of all, I got a 10-foot one. And I was back at the register again. And I said, now I'm planning on wrapping this around the mic stand because I don't want just cords loose everywhere. And I'm going to use zip ties to tie it on there so it's not falling down. And will this 10-foot be long enough? And he said, probably not. I said, well, let's get a 15-foot then. So we went back and got the 15-foot. So he loaded it in the car for me. And what is so fun, this is the cutest little amplifier. It's a Fender. And Sister Jean, those of y'all who knew Sister Jean Holland, our lifelong friend that passed away about, I don't know, a year and a half ago. She passed away in June of 2021. She always had a little Fender amplifier that she used to play her electric guitars with in her house. So it was kind of an ode to her, even though you know, I would have bought another one, but I knew the Fender name and I knew it was a good one. And it's really small, but it's real cute. And you can plug two different, either a guitar and a mic or two mics in it. So I was really, really excited. I know that it was probably something that I did not have to have, but I really did want it. And I was just really excited to get it. So anyway, it made this old woman happy. So, okay, so we haven't heard from Linnell this morning, or at least I haven't. I don't know if Mary has or not, but I do plan to call as soon as my live is over and I get a chance to catch my breath. I'm going to call and check on her. So we certainly appreciate y'all continuing praying for her. And Janet, Mike's sister, they did the procedure yesterday. And they said everything went well. So I haven't heard from them today. She had been on and off of a ventilator for the better part of 3 weeks. So they did that, and I'm not going to pronounce it, but it's something like a trach. They did that to help her breathing. And, you know, we don't know what the next step is or anything, but thank y'all for praying for her. Mike has... and one of these days, I am going to tell at least some of his story. It's not really my story to tell. It's his. And he would tell it to someone one-on-one, but he's not a camera person. And it would be an act of God or a miracle if I ever got him on this camera to tell his story. But he has a very compelling story of his life. And God has been good to him. And I tell him all the time, well, we've been together, we've been married longer than you lived apart, so that ought to count for something. But the first part of his life was had a lot of sadness in it. So anyway, God always makes up for it. And I was telling someone this morning, you know, when you lose one thing, God always fills that void with something else. And I believe that with all my heart. When I was singing yesterday afternoon, I was talking about people come in your life for a reason. Some are there from your earliest memory throughout your life, which, you know, of course, are my siblings, my family, my cousins that I've known people all of our life. Linnell has been in our family, a part of our family since she was, I don't know if she was 14 when Charles met or 15, but for a very long time. Debbie has been in our family. Edward's wife has been in our family since she was a young girl also, probably about the same age. So I feel very fortunate and very blessed that our family is as close-knit as we are. I have people every day tell me that we just have something special, and we all know that. We recognize that, and we thank God for that. And I know that a lot of you have families that y'all are very close to, and the ones that don't, we hope that y'all have found friends and family in other places and in other people. And hopefully you found friends in Mary and I, and Carla and Little Linda and Mike and Chuck, and we certainly consider y'all our friends. So don't have a lot planned today other than I need to work on some recipes and a few other little things that I need to do. And hopefully I'll be able to get some of that done. Sometimes when you get through with one thing, you got to take a rest break, and then before you know it, it's 3 o'clock, and then before you know it, it's 6 or 7, and these days go by so quickly. It's just amazing how fast they go. Today's the 7th, and it won't be no time till we'll be in the new year. So if you have someone in your life that you feel like needs uplifting, or maybe you haven't been in touch with them in a while, reach out to them. And I know that we don't know all situations, and we know situations are different, but reach out to them because you might not ever know that it done that person any good, but it's going to do you some good, and I promise you that. Mike lost one of his brothers. I want to say it was 2 years ago in May, and they weren't estranged, but they had not been in touch with each other in quite a while. And just out of the clear blue, Mike woke up one morning. He said, I need to send Melvin a card. And so he did. He bought a real pretty card, and he wrote him a nice little letter in it and sent it to Melvin. And less than 2 weeks after he sent that card, Melvin died. And it always done something special to Mike, because he reached out to him. Melvin knew he loved him. And I know that sometimes we don't understand things. And Mike has always said that obedience is better than sacrifice. When you hear that still little small voice, sometimes you think, nah, there's nothing to that. Just brush it off. Don't brush it off. It may be something that if you don't do what that little still voice is telling you, you might regret that later. And it's always been such a comfort to me knowing that Mike did what he was feeling like he should do, and no one can ever take that away from him. And I want to tell y'all something else too. Y'all heard me talk about Mike and his praying a lot. I hope I'm not talking too low. My voice tends to fluctuate. When I get irritated, my voice gets louder and louder and louder. And there's no two ways about it. If I'm excited or if I get irritated, I'm going to get loud. And you might not think I can talk loud, but I can talk loud when I want to. But his other brother, Tim, got COVID. And he was not doing well at all. And he was in the hospital, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't think he was ventilated, but I think that they were probably thinking that was the next step. Now, I may be wrong about that, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I had something to do, so I left the house for a while. And I came back, and I noticed that Mike had been crying. And he said, Linda, he said, Tim's going to be all right. And I said, okay. And he said, no, he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. He said, I saw him, and Mike has had visions before. And for those of you who have not or don't know what we're talking about, they're very real. It's not hallucinations. It's an actual vision. He said, I was praying and I saw him get up out of bed and tell them he wanted something to eat. He said, he's going to be okay. That day he turned the corner, and I texted him and told him, I said, you know, Mike has prayed for Tim and he's going to be all right. And, you know, I don't know if sometimes if people believe you when you tell them something like that or not, but he's all right. He was all right. Now, I don't know if he suffered, you know, things after having COVID or not, but I know that the Lord raised him up out of that bed after Mike prayed. And I believe with all my heart that's why, because Mike prayed. And Mike wasn't the only one that was praying. I know that. There was people all over praying. Mike's family, most of them are Nazarene. Some of them may be Church of God, I don't know, but he came from a very God-conscious family. His granddad was a deacon in the Nazarene church there in Kentucky, and was a very, very, very good man. But, you know, sometimes you're not raised to go to church, and Mike was raised to go to church. He was always very God conscious and always was aware, but he was not in a family that went to church. And a lot of them do go to church now, his immediate family. But when he was a child, they didn't. And I'm not saying any of this out of any disrespect for Mike or Mike's family at all. I would never, ever, ever do that, because they are very good people. Very, very good people. But anyway, sometimes when a fleeting thought comes across your mind and you think, nah, that was just me, you need to think about that, because it definitely might not have just been you. It might have been the Lord giving you that little nudge and telling you, you know, you need to do this or you need to do that. And I've got just about 2 or 3 more minutes. I know I've been on an hour, but I've got 2 or 3 more minutes before I do the next stirring. And then I'm going to stir, and then I'm going to get off live. And then I'll do the rest of it. And when it gets done, I will show y'all the finished product. But I was thinking about the other day something that Mother taught us. And I don't even know why I'm saying this, except that I was thinking about it the other day. You know, the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. If whatever age you are, if you are a child, and I believe that children do know right from wrong from a very, very early age. I think they have a conscience from a very early age. But Mother always taught us, if you have to ask if something is wrong, then you can pretty much figure it is wrong. As far as you wrong, you know, if you got to say, well, what would you do, or, you know, what about this or what about that, and you get an answer, but it's not the answer you want, and so you go ask somebody else, and they'll say, oh yeah, sure, that's fine, go ahead and do it. So you've done that to kind of soothe your conscience over. So I don't know why I had thought about that for the last few days, but I think about things that Mama used to tell us and teach us a lot, and Daddy too. And sometimes you just, it's on your mind, and you just, I guess I just wanted to say that. I've got just about a minute, so I'm going to move this back over here and get these out again and stir this. I'll take the bottom one out first. And you can tell the color is starting to get darker. And the next time I stir it, it's even going to be darker than this. See from the bottom where it's getting darker? The sides, it's getting that really nice caramel color. So it went from a very pale light yellow to now it's kind of a real light caramel. And when you pour this out, you want to have either a large buttered pan to pour it out on. You could also use foil, but you would need to have it on a cookie sheet, not just foil on your counter. I use freezer paper, and because it's thick, and I'll put it over, I have these big white trays, and I'll put the freezer paper in that tray, and I'll probably just lightly butter it. You don't want to use spray. Please do not use spray on this. It will change the taste of it, and I do not like that artificial taste of those sprays. So if you're going to lightly butter something, use butter. Don't use a spray. See how beautiful that is? That's just gorgeous. And I'm going to use freezer paper to do mine on, because it's sturdy, it's coated, and used to use a lot of freezer paper. I don't use as much as I used to now, but when I was baking, I used a lot of it. See how pretty that color is? Now you definitely don't want to touch this. This is hot syrup, and if you touch it, your hands are going to get burnt. Okay. Okay, this will be my third cooking. I'll set my timer. And then I will get set up to when I get it out the last time, and I will have it here and poured out, and y'all can see it, and so I hate not to come back on to show y'all what it's going to look like, but I'll take pictures. So I really appreciate y'all hanging with me and watching me today, and watching Mary yesterday, and then I would appreciate if y'all watch me again tomorrow. And I'll see y'all tomorrow live at 10 o'clock Central Time. Be sure to like our page, and be sure to share our page with your friends, family, and your church family. And always hold your head up high. You are God's child, and you have nothing to hang your head about. Be sure to count your blessings. I think sometimes that's where we miss blessings in life, is not being thankful for what we have. So be sure to sing praises to Him and count your blessings. And I'll see y'all tomorrow, and I'll have pictures posted once this gets finished cooking. Thank you very much. Bye. Love y'all.